Okay, preparing to live stream, and we are on. Good morning, Beatrice. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
I'm so excited to have you here. And you and I will be on Zoom and streaming on Facebook Live. So we want to tell our community that if you have questions or comments, we'll have Philip and Jasmine keeping an eye on it. And if there are questions that are for you to answer, please share them and Philip and Jasmine will send them over to us. So that way people can still participate. So I want to first introduce you. And, Beatrice gave me her bio. She is truly one of the most um, powerful, skillful experts, integrative physician that I have ever met. And I've really been on a search for an integrative physician a long time. And so I took her bio and I shortened it a little bit, but I'm like, but I've got to say this and I've got to say this. So I'm going to read your bio and then we can always play with what else comes up. Does that sound good?
As you wish. And also,
Okay.
I just want to say I'm grateful to be here with you in this beautiful community.
I'm really happy. And we'll talk about Philip introduced us to each other and we just have been so connected from the first day that we met. So that's why I wanted to share you with my community. That's one of the reasons. So, all right, let's do it. I'm going to go slow so you guys can get it. So, Dr. Beatriz Olson has been a catalyst and a champion for transformational healthcare for decades. Her mind-body approach to clients' empowerment combined with her medical expertise, support her patient to identify, prevent, or reverse illness, and to embrace the power of self-care and lifestyle changes as the gateway to long-term, authentic, and sustainable health. Her superior toolbox of medical knowledge allows unusual diagnosis to be made. I'm so curious about that. And to move the patient towards wellness using mind body techniques. She herself has faced health and social challenges as a Cuban immigrant that deeply affected her life. She now lives and embodies true, authentic health that can be achieved and the potential for a higher level of well being that others can reach when working with her. Now, a little bit about her background. She holds board certifications in fields of endocrinology, metabolism, diabetes, and internal medicine. And then the kicker, a certificate in age management medicine and decades of experience in integrative medicine. On a personal note, Dr. Olson is a visual artist, an incredible visual artist, and has used the arts to help herself and educate others. I love this story. She met her husband, Dr. Eric Olson, on the first day of medical school. They have two daughters, both who are empowered women in their own professional field. Ah, so much. So I want to begin with the integrative medicine piece because that's something that you are so deeply passionate about. Can you tell us what does that mean to be an integrative physician, especially to you?
Well, this actually came from learning from Deepak Chopra in 1997. I went to La Jolla
Mm.
and learned about mind body medicine and Ayurveda. And it blew my mind because in medical school, I had learned only to treat manifested disease. And in the mind body system, and particularly in Ayurvedic medicine, there's a range. You go from extremely vibrant health to progressive stages of lack of wellness. And ultimately, you enter manifested disease, which is what I was trained to treat in medical school. So all of a sudden, this whole world opened up for me because often people are looking for a diagnosis, but many times they don't have a manifested disease. They just have pain in their souls, pain in their minds, mild alterations in their biology that makes them feel that they're not well and they think they have a disease. And just regrouping this and understanding it makes a difference. So there's no duality. We were taught in medicine about the body as being organs and systems. But in fact, there is no organ and system without the whole organism. And both must work together, the mind, the body, the spirit, we're energy and information. So that when all of these energies are aligned and integrated, you have a perfect union of what can be the greatest health. But often we're in our minds, we're not in our bodies. All of us are living, thinking, doing, thinking that we're being, and really we're not connected to the essence of what it is to be grounded in the body. And this disconnection leads to illness, lack of wellness. And I believe that you have to treat the whole person that has the disease, as opposed to have to just treat the disease.
Wow. It's funny, I notice in myself as you speak, it's almost like I have tears. One of the reasons you and I got so connected to each other, and Philip knew this, is because you seemingly hold like so much of the medical expertise. And one of the things you told me you were attracted to me about is how much of the energetic, spiritual expertise I have. I went to a 4 years energy healing school. And so for me, that's I don't have medical expertise, but I do have energy medicine expertise. And just the way you speak about the whole person, I think part of the tears are, imagine if every doctor was trained the way that you were trained. When you talk about the separation from body and mind. And so it's both like, well, the body's not important. Like, who cares about the body? The body becomes an object, and it becomes an object not just to the person herself or himself, but also to the doctor, right? Like, here's this gland, and here's this gland, and here's this thing, and they just become separate parts. And what really strikes me about the words you and I are using are separation and unity, separation and integration, which is it's like the source of all of our suffering and the source of all of our solutions. Separation is all of our suffering. Unity is where bliss comes in. Yeah, how does that sound to you?
Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something that we deeply share, in this sense of what is wholeness.
Yeah, say
It's
more
everything.
about that. Yeah, it's everything, right? Because when any parts of us are rejected or ignored or pushed away or considered unacceptable or considered less important, it's like, that's why I love work like soul retrieval work, right? And I imagine like probably what you do in your practice. I never thought about this before, so let's check it out. In a sense, it's soul and physical retrieval, right? It's bringing parts of ourselves, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, back into wholeness. Does that fit for you about what it is you do?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Often we develop ideas of who we are from our cultures, from our environments. And then when we're young and cruising along, we get hurt along the way. So we have these little petite morts that take away a little bit of ourselves or separates us from the star that we are. And unfortunately, that leads to some shame, isolation, and a sense that we don't matter. And when we all have that sense of we don't matter, we all have some of this at some level, by the way. All humans have this experience, but some to a greater extent than others. Some of us have been so hurt and so taken someplace that we've been stunned. We've been taken to a place where we're always fighting to survive. And from that place, it's very hard to reach that rope that pulls you towards hope again and towards believing again. And you have to remind people of the essence of who they are, that their essence is perfect and whole. There have been distractions along the way, But if one reminds each one of us that we're whole just as we are, and in fact, we cannot truly heal until we embrace ourselves fully and really believe that we matter,
Yeah, that's
that we
really
can trust in
beautiful.
ourselves.
Yeah, one of the things that really blew me away was when you found out about my work, and you took the challenge, the 10-day challenge that we did in February, and you dove feet first, head first, heart first, soul first, and just did all the 10 days. And so I know that you'll know what I'm talking about when I use this language, right? One of the things we know, and I think you and I resonate with, is it's a shift in perception, what we're talking about, because there might be some people in the audience right now that say, okay, yeah, got it, got it. I know I have to be whole. I know I have to remember I'm a star. I know I have to remember I matter, but how do I do that? It seems like such a Herculean task. And yet, what I've learned in my work, which I think you know too, and I'd love to hear it from you, is that it's actually a shift from who we become when we are living in the physiology of the stress response, which distorts the way we see ourselves, which shuts down our rational thinking brain, which literally makes us see the world from the negativity bias, right? Makes us see the other as separate and as the enemy, and then learning to bring our attention to what is simply called the relaxation response, where the brain waves and our emotions, our thoughts, our actions all become aligned with the sense of wholeness and mattering. And the fact that I can actually honestly say that all of our suffering lies in who we become in the stress response, right? The separation response. And all of our liberation lies in who we become in the relaxation response blows me away every single day. So I wonder whether that fits for you and if there's anything you want to add to that.
Well, first of all, I just want to reflect back to you the beauty and the brilliance of the feel good scale. And I love the simplicity of it in terms of taking someone from a place of lack of clarity of where they are to a place to focus awareness. And it's a very simple, brilliant way of showing people where the red zones are, where is that place of flight and fight where you can't think, where it is that you're showing up because what happened to you in the past, and what is limiting you from going to that happier place or calmer place or healthier place, the way that I would look at it too, as a mind, body, spirit person, where your whole body would fall into a place of more calm, more healing, more time to respond to the gentle biologic changes that are happening and psychological things that we face every day in our reality, rather than just react because we're not in a calm place where we can make those decisions at multiple levels of action. So yes, I do think that a change of perspective and the way that you create it is a way that it's so nice to be able to say that when you're angsting this way, this is where you are, but you have a choice. You can make a choice. We can always make a choice. Will we choose to be happy today, or will we choose to complain today? Will we choose to make good choices for ourselves? Will we choose to thank our bodies for the actions that it's taking to take us to where we're going? We have these choices, and I like the idea of the practice of positive actions and choices because they continue to empower us to move in that direction. The garden that we water flowers and blossoms. What we
Mm.
don't look what we don't look at becomes ash.
Yeah, so the garden that we water, so if we water reactivity, if we water the stress response, if we water urgency doing, right, that's going to grow more. And we know that, if I bring in, how quantum physics and spirituality, there's a lot more teachings about that. So if I bring in that world, the quantum spiritual world is literally whatever I resonate at, whatever I vibrate at frequency, if it's a red zone frequency or a green zone frequency, it just attracts in the quantum field more of it. Right?
Exactly. And the same physically, you could say the same. If you have a particular diet and way of living, you create an environment around you that gives you bad bugs in your intestines. You get leaky gut. You get transfer of things that shouldn't be going in. You get things inside that say, oh my God, here's an invader. And you begin an immune response, and you develop autoimmune disease, and you begin to develop other things biologically, again, because of what is it that you're watering? What are you focusing your attention on in your life? It's the same thing over and over. This is why I'm so excited to work with you, because I think that we're working, it's the same concept over and over at different levels of consciousness, at the rational level, at the physical level, emotional, psychologically, energetically. Is we create our actions, our words, our thoughts, create what happens to us.
One of the things that I want to say to listeners is that, again, when we talk about choice, we always have the choice. One of the things that's important for people to know, right, is that in the stress response, when we're actively in the stress response in that red zone, what we call the red zone, the capacity to choose gets kidnapped, right? Our frontal cortex gets kidnapped because the body doesn't want us to be say, is this a golden retriever coming towards me, or is this a mountain lion? It wants us to act now and think later. And so you were speaking about the power of the feel-good scale. The way we solve that in my work is we actually have you recognize when you are in that red zone, that stress response, so that you can do a couple steps to get yourself out of it and recover the power of choice. Because actually, we don't have the power of choice. And one of my greatest, I don't know if it's a mantra, is it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So it's not our fault who we become in the stress response in the red zone, the one that wants to overeat, overdrink, yell at our partners, even though we want to. But if we're living in that stress response, we don't have the choice. But the moment you learn and become aware of what you look like, what you feel like in the stress response, and do the 3 steps to get you out of it, you recover the power of choice. And I think it's the greatest gift that you can give anyone, is that power of choice.
Right. And you need a space. We have to develop a space between action and reaction and response, or response. And I think this is the beauty of returning to the breath, anchoring again in the body, the power of meditation practice. All of these things create an anti-realm between the event that happens in front of us and how we react. And I think that that is the beauty of the things that you're using as a 3-step approach to allowing people to rethink, reevaluate, be aware, investigate, recognize, and then do something that is in support of you. And I agree with you in the other concept that the zones of turbulence, which you have in your system as this yellow zone of transition between different areas, it's very hard. We all create our own set points as to where our way of being is. And it's not easy for any of us to make any major changes that are substantive because we're highly disciplined to our old bad habits. So the brain doesn't like to learn new things. So it requires that repetitive action and reminder and experience that we're learning something new. Aren't you curious and excited? No, I'm absolutely not curious and excited. I'm going back to doing what I'm enjoying doing right now. No, but let's rethink this over. Let's breathe and think about it. And then this action, this conversation within ourselves, and this compassion for looking at where we are and looking at where we can be. That's where the transitional space is. That's where the churning happens. And it happens at multiple levels.
Gosh, there's so many pieces. One is the anteroom. I freaking love the anteroom. There, so you spoke about the space between action and reactivity, right? The other one, I don't know if you've ever read Tara Bennett Goleman's work. She's Daniel Goleman's wife, who Daniel Goleman created emotional intelligence.
Sure.
And her book, Emotional Alchemy, she talks about a choice point. And the choice point is between the impulse and the action. It's actually why I named my company. My company is actually named Choice Point because I became fascinated 20 years ago to study what do we do at that choice point with going the old way, right? The more traveled neural pathway, the most traveled road, or the new way. And what she said was that for most people, there's only a quarter second between the impulse and the action. She says adolescence is 1/64th of a second. And what I have discovered is that this work, this methodology, and all of our healing is about expanding that quarter second to 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, so that we recover that to be like, hold on, yeah, my brain doesn't want to change. I want to go and have that extra ice cream. I want to go, hold on, I'm going to breathe and I'm going to choose a feel-good habit instead. And I think it's the crux, isn't it? Like as you and I speak about it, it's the crux of liberation if we're able to expand that choice point. Would you agree with that sentence?
No, I agree. I think that that you have to train detachment. And we're just too attached to things that make us feel good or give us dopamine rushes or things like that. And it's that choice. It is liberating when you're no longer attached to it.
Right, you and I talked, how I talk about false good habits and feel good habits. And the false good habits is what you're talking about. And I love telling them that they are like false gods, because false gods promise us immediate satisfaction, and then they deliver a lot of pain in the long run. So these false good habits are the ones you're talking about. They deliver the instant hit of dopamine and then don't have us feel good in the long run. And feel good habits or feel God habits are actually the ones that require more intention, more choice, more slowing down, but have us feel good, feel God in the long run.
I agree entirely. These hungry ghosts are very, very happy to let you know that you need.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, go on. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. In the end, what?
At the end, we have no lack. We have no lack. We have abundance. When we come to understand that we are abundance, we have abundance. What else do you need?
I love that. One of the pieces I wanted to play with you a little bit, right, is we talked at the beginning about energy. And one of the things that it says on your bio is your capacity to diagnose, what is the word that you wrote? Unusual diagnoses. And I'm so curious if you could talk to us about what skills do you use beyond the traditional medical skills to diagnose imbalances or illnesses?
Yeah, there's various approaches about things that one could talk about. I don't know how many of you guys read the book Malcolm Gladwell, Blink. And it is this process of first, as a young doctor, you just have to learn the facts. You have to know the details. This is the rational mind that needs to be trained to understand when you're presented with something, to be able to identify it, to call it for what it is, and then try to use the evidence-based data that you have to address it. Often we treat things through evidence-based approaches, but we don't necessarily treat the source of where this is coming. Often we don't. We just give patches to deal with the problem. We don't cure the underlying condition. We accept it as a thing that has happened and it's perhaps reversible. This is truly not true, but this has been a belief. This is the rational mind. Beyond the rational mind comes something that comes with time of being a doctor or seeing patients, or in your job, Isabel. I'm sure you sense the energy or the story of someone that you're seeing for the first time. You're sensing something about them that gives you a lot of information. And we are energy and information. So when you and I are working together, we're actually non-local, because you're over there and I am here, but here we are together, very connected, because we choose to be at this point together to connect. So if it is true that we can do this using quantum physics about where we can be at any time, you can also connect to that state of what the energy is that I'm sharing with this human that I'm interacting with right now. And there is some knowingness or intuition that happens with time, because you no longer have to worry about what the rational is. The rational, is the irrational and the intuition that actually becomes quite interesting and fun to see what happens when you interact with somebody else's energy. Are you able to then reach a point where you have synchronous waves that are working together for a goal? And what waves are you getting there? What is the vulnerability? What is the emotional current that is happening? What is that energetic state? And can we both work together so I sense something that you may not be able to tell me, because it's in the energy, it's in another place, it's in the fascia, it is inside of the tissues, but you don't know it. You don't know it until you know it. So that there are things that appear so obvious, yet they haven't been for a long time until you do it. So that's what I think my husband also helped me to write this bio. So he's very, very positive about who I am and what I do. And yes, I do make funky diagnoses.
Give me an example. Will you share an example or two of what your traditional medical training of a client did not give you information about, and then what your intuition did? Do you have a couple client stories you could share with us?
Well, yeah, there's so many of them. There's physical ones. There's people that have gone to many doctors for a long time and they don't get examined. People don't get examined anymore. I'll give you a case of a patient of mine for many years who had a stroke. And she lives with her daughter. And she began to lose weight. And she went to many doctors to see her. And they told a story. And each time they left the doctor's office, they were congratulated on the fact that she was losing weight. But this woman is wheelchair bound, you know, at this point, and she's being fed the regular diet. So it's not as if she's making any transformative changes to what is going on to her. But everybody just you says, "Oh, great, you've been doing so well." And in fact, I sensed that there was something very bad going on, because you can't expect that to be happening at that time. So I had her brought in. And then here comes the beauty of being well trained. Just touching her body and examining, I found this large watermelon mass in her abdomen. And it happened to be a large uterus that had grown. Initially, I thought it was cancer. It was compressing her inner organs. So that's why she was eating so much less. And that's why she lost the weight. And after her uterus got removed, it turned out to be non-malignant growth. So she returned to her weight. But many, many people saw her. Many, many people ignored her because she had a stroke and she couldn't communicate well. And they weren't seeing her anymore. But when you get seen, when somebody sees you, then you can find out what is going on. That's a physical story. Another story can be that I am examining someone and then I go and I find things that are going on with them that we didn't know they had, but I just sort of sense it and feel it and do it. And then sometimes I just get information that somehow the patient needs to know, and I don't interfere with that. I just say what comes to my mind that while I touch them, they need to know. And somehow they need to know that whatever they need to know, they know it's for them. So I don't interfere with that. I just say what I'm sensing right now. I'm sensing this is something that maybe you should hear.
And what do you find about the way people respond? Are they usually like, I knew it? Or like, you know, do you find that people often know something, but they just haven't even said it to themselves? That's what I found as an energy healer, is when I would finally say the thing that I would hear, they'd be like, oh, a part of me knew that, but never made it conscious. Have you found that?
Yes, there is. We're all called when truth talks to us.
Mm.
There's a pause in our space where we're called to listen. And it happens. It's a different voice. It's a different energy that enters, and everyone knows it's there. So while it's happening, and then it's gone, and then they know. They know. I forget. I forget. They know, and that's what matters.
Well, and it's fast. What did you said something like, when the truth, oh, there was a sentence you said, I'll have to pull it out when I listen to the interview again. You know, I think I told you the story that early on in my energy healing career, I was doing an energy healing with somebody who wanted to get pregnant. And I was, like I said, it was like not even the first year after I had graduated from my healing school. And I immediately heard, and we'll talk about the voice you and I will talk about, she's going to have a Down syndrome baby. And I remember thinking, I don't want to hear that. And the voice kept telling me and telling me and telling me. And I didn't want to hear it. And I didn't want to tell her. Literally, there's like no way. No, you know how sometimes, well, I do. I argue with God or spirit what I hear. And so we finished the energy healing, and we're sitting across from each other. And I still don't want to tell her. I still am too cowardly to tell her. And I finally say to her, so what did you get? And she just looked at me and she said, I'm going to have a Down syndrome baby, aren't I? And I was so blown away. And what it was is that she was being told that and I kept being told this, give her the choice. She has the choice. She right now gets the choice. You know, and I was too scared to tell, but she knew it. And so I think sometimes we know things, you know, you talked about that voice, that's a different voice than that usual voice, But sometimes we might need someone like you or someone like me to tell the person, and then they recognize that they already knew that truth. They just didn't want to hear it. And we become messengers for that truth.
I agree. We are all here in the energetic space to support each other. And it depends on whether you're open or not to receive what you need to receive.
Yeah, are you open to, it's interesting. I'm just going to check, make sure that there are no questions we need to answer. Give me a second. Philip and Jasmine, if by any chance, where's my phone? Okay. If by any chance there are questions, let us know. I think you know this, that in my business, I've made God my CEO, and it's really in my personal life too. And it's just I had the 3 steps down. It's another methodology that the first step is listen. Second step is take action on what you hear. And third step is let go of outcome. And so what you and I are talking about right now is the listening piece. And it is one of my passions to teach people, well, how do we listen to God, to spirit, to source, to universe, whatever people want to call it? How do we listen? And so you spoke about it being a different voice, right? That's one of the ways we hear. Sometimes we see poems, we see passages from a book, we see synchronicities, but often we hear. Can you say more about the incredible subtle skill of the voice, that still small voice, and how it sounds different to you, that it's something bigger talking?
Well, I think that to listen, you must be fully present. Presence is crucial to receive. And the more present we are, the more empathic we are, the more that we can see whoever we're interacting in positive regard, the more that we can enter that space and reach. Presence is crucial for awareness.
I literally feel that in my heart. One of the things I keep noticing, Beatriz, is that when you speak, you are such an embodiment to me of the highest frequencies of the green zone. It's like when you speak, it's like everything becomes quiet in me. And your voice, your words just come straight into my heart. And that's one of the things too, right? That the green zone, presence, unconditional regard, all the things that we call green zone, they are such a felt experience, not just to ourselves, but to others too. And so for those of us wanting to impact the world, which I think is everybody in my community, Barbara Brennan, the head of the healing school I went to, said a sentence I never forgot. The client can only go as far as the healer has gone, or as the doctor has gone, or as the therapist has gone, whatever you want to fit in. And so the 4 years at my healing school were a deep dive into my subconscious, into my shadow, into what was unresolved. And it's every day still, I have a deep devotion to letting go of debris, of transmuting, let's say, debris, shadows that prevent me from being light. And to me, I know you've done so much work to liberate yourself from anything that weighs you down and be light. And it's just felt when I'm in connection with you. Anything you want to say about that, about the journey? I don't know if we want to call it self-development, whatever the word is that you have done. You talked about having struggled when you first came as a Cuban immigrant, having issues. Anything you want to say about your personal story?
Well, first, I want to say that I am connected to you right now through my heart to you as part of this interaction to help the community feel what is so good about being fully connected and healing. This is why we're here. We're here to interact energies and to lift ourselves to higher levels to help others around us. So that's the first thing I want to say. So you touch my heart, and I thank you for saying that I touch yours. That's the first thing. I think we're all on a journey, and I feel that I'm not highly developed yet as I would like to be. I really have, and I don't think I ever will in this lifetime. And I recently became in a hurry about that, because COVID came and death was holding my hand. 4 members of my family had COVID. 1 died, 1 nearly died. Everyone around me was dying, more so than I've ever been as a physician. So in my own journey, I recognized that whatever was holding me back was kind of stupid, because I don't have much time left. So I really want to let go of many things that prevent me from being more visible, that prevent me from trusting myself to do more. These are things that we all struggle with, that are just in each one of us is in our own journey. Letting go of showing up with a sense of lack. That's, our parents always, they created our buttons, so they know how to push them, and other family members. So it's coming through that work too. And it's just very, very difficult. We all have our issues. In my journey, when I came from, we left Cuba, we went to Spain, then we came here to America. And I was just transitioning. It was my puberty, 12 to 13-year-old girl, and I became very obese. And within a year, I didn't recognize myself, and everybody made fun of me. And I recognized that other people's values, how people saw me might be the way that I truly was. So I bought that story. I bought that story for a long time. And I behaved in ways that showed that I needed to be hiding. And I had to go through that growth spurt. And then to the next level, there are many levels. It's like a game, like you reach level 1, you got there. Then you got to go to level 2 and level 3. I don't know which level I'm in, but I'm working on it. I'm working. I've been meditating since 1997, and it changed my life. And I went from red zone to green zone with my meditation. So yes, that is something that everyone should be doing, and I agree with that. So that was part of the change. And there's been many other losses in my life, many rejections. I've been the subject of prejudice within very close circles of mine, and I've had to go beyond that. My value is non-negotiable. Other people's opinions of me don't really reflect who I truly am. And these are lessons that I have learned as I move along, so that I'm able to show up as a more authentic human. I learned to eat differently. I learned to be better, to see what my body needed. I went to medical school and became an endocrinologist who knows about hormones, because I needed to know that. So, and my journey actually informs me of what needs to be learned next to create the next evolution in my karmic journey, getting rid of karmic residue along the way.
You and I, when we first got on Zoom, I noticed the color in you, right? The colorful dress, and you have the beautiful, colorful art. And you said, do you remember the sentence you said? You said, I'm done living in black and white, I think is what you said. And we talked about it briefly, and it's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like you are what is it? Actually, let me give you that back. Say more about your desire to live in color with what you were just saying about being visible. Can you say more about that?
Yes. Well, it has multiple levels of meaning, of course. Black and white, no grays in between. Being very colorful is really a very Latin thing. You know, we're very sexual beings. We're very colorful beings. We express ourselves a lot. We have things to say, and we're warm. And coming to America, that was really awkward. You know, it was better to wear whites or beiges or colors where somehow you would be accepted more or not call attention to oneself and one's loudness and one's differentness. But my difference is what makes me special. And my colors are what I really like to. I'm a canvas. I dress myself every day with art. I use every piece of clothing that I have in my closet every day so nothing gets wasted. We Cubans don't waste anything. We use everything. So I do that. And I just now, I have a greater range. My palette is huge. So I'm not limited to two colors. It's too boring at that level.
You know, one of the things that I love about this feel good scale is its shape. And it's actually interesting because it was actually my husband. It used to be like a traffic light, a rectangle. And one day, a bunch of years ago, he's like, no, why don't you make it a triangle? And I think it changed everything because who we are in the red zone, right? It's almost like the black and white zone. We just see the world in black and white. You're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, everything is black and white, good, bad, right? It's the separation response. And who we are in the green zone is multicolored, multi-senses, multi-emotions. You know, it's whole, and it's represented by the fact that it's at the bottom of the pyramid, and it is the widest part of it's the widest part of the scale. And that's what you're talking about. I have so much. I am so abundant. I have so, I'm not finding the good word. For me, I become a wider and deeper human being the more I do this work. You know, when I used to smoke cigarettes, I used to love to smoke cigarettes. And then I finally quit, for like the 10th time. And so then I became really judgmental towards smokers, because, and I remember Brian, who's always so wise, saying to me, well, where is your smoker? And it was like, I had been so obsessed with getting rid of parts of me. I'm not a bulimic anymore. I'm not a smoker. I'm becoming a perfect human being who's just carved out. I have carved out any parts of myself I don't like. And now, you kind of walk around like this because you're so scared that if you breathe too much or talk too much, you might start touching those places you've now pushed away. And it's like, to become whole, there's no pushing away. There's no getting rid of. You can't get rid of energy. You can't get rid of energy. So either you push it away and you put it against a cement wall, on the other side of a cement wall, and you get sick, or you embrace your wholeness and you become responsible with the parts of you that are more destructive.
Yeah, so I view it as a pendulum, that you're at one end and then you change and you shift to the other end, but you need to do that to sort of separate yourself from that which was a central part of you. It's a natural process and necessary, even though we can call it judgmental. And yes, we project onto others what we no longer want to see in ourselves. But the reality is that it is just a natural process, and in some ways it's necessary. It's like grieving. When you lose someone, you go through this disbelief period, and then you get angry, and you go through this process. Eventually you accept it, and then you move on. So during that, I view the transition of any state like a pendulum. You're going from one end to the other, and then you go back to that centeredness of where it should have been all along. You see, going back and forth, knowing and rotating that you are safe in this place. You're no longer there. You're no longer here. You're here.
Mhm.
And it's just, I think, I really believe that we have to go through that. And the nicer way, the nicest way that we can do it, the better it is.
So what you're saying, I want to be clear. You're saying when we are transforming our habits, you're saying often it's normal to be, for example, we might be bingers at night. It's normal that we have to swing on the other side and be very regimented with food, or is that what you're saying?
No, I think that that when we are so identified with something that we're doing that is part of us, it's hard to overcome it.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to say is that, again, it's an attachment. I have, I'm very much into Buddhist philosophy. And the belief is that all suffering truly comes from attachment, you know, and that everything that has to do with us, having to do with us, about me, about what I'm doing, this is who I am, this is what I do, it's very hard to disconnect from that idea. So to be able to separate your true self, the essence of who you are, from that ego attachment of that behavior, of what it is that the ego is doing in this behavior and what is driving it, so that detachment is necessary. So whichever way we do it is, our own way. It could be that for some people, never drink again, because it's hard for them to drink because they may come back again to where they don't want to be. So there have to be certain disciplines and habits that are learned for different degrees of attachments that are necessary.
Mhm.
There's love relationships that you have, and then they fall apart. But you identified with who you were with that person. So you, with time, have to somehow detach
Mhm.
so you can see yourself again separately and see that you are whole, even though you lost that part of yourself that was so defining of how you were. So I think it has to do with everything. The same thing with health, the same thing with everything.
Yeah, I love that. Makes total sense. One of the things that I'm curious about, and let's make this maybe be our last question, because we knew we could talk for 2 hours, so we're getting to the top of the hour. But one of the things that I've seen, so I've done the change of habits, the healing of habits, two different ways. One, for certain things, I've had to actually say no more, right? I get to the point, so with my eating disorder, with cigarettes, sometimes with relationships. My husband and I think this, actually divorced, and now we're back together. So we had to get to the point where it was no more to who we were in that relationship, in order to create a new one. I was grateful that I got to do it with the same man. What I've also seen, and that's why I love this work so much, is that actually we can also affect incredible change, what I call from the inside out. So if I work at up-leveling and up-leveling and up-leveling my frequency, right? What feel-good level I'm at by meditating, by being kind, all the things, all the feel-good habits we do. When I up-level my frequency, I find that false good habits fall off. I was the type of person, I had an eating disorder. I was at school getting double masters. And meanwhile, every afternoon, I would watch soap operas for 3 hours, numb myself with pot and with food, and binge for 3 hours. I would just sit, there was no TiVo at that point. So I would just sit for 3 hours straight. And all the things that I did ended up dissipating as I changed from the inside out. So I also find that by doing our internal work, that impacts external habits, and sometimes changing external habits impacts our frequency, right? So that it's really like an infinity loop. Does that resonate with you too, with what you've seen?
Yes, it's about inner abundance and where we're sourcing our actions and our choices. Once we become responsible and we source from within, that you catapult the process of having enoughness, so that you don't have to worry or numb out different parts that just really need a break. They need to get away. So the more inner sourced you are, the more energy you have, and the more that you have to do, and the less time you have to be watching soap operas and then having food, because you got work to do, you got things to do. And it's interesting is that it's these energy sinks that we fall into. They're safety nets for us when we're suffering. And so a part of us, that's a homeostatic set point that holds us back from truly becoming who we're meant to be. And the fuller we are, the fuller our hearts are, the fuller our minds are, the less room there is for such stuff, because it's no longer needed.
Yeah, no longer fits. It no longer fits, right? Like
Yes.
the thought of even smoking pot like makes me go into full-blown anxiety. But for a long time, it was like I had a hole in my energy field and pot filled it up. Now my energy field is whole. And so it's like it's a puzzle piece that doesn't fit anymore.
Right. But I would also say that pot, for example, indicas are really useful, and they have importance in healing aspects of all sorts of things, traumatic brain injuries, functioning as ways to deal with pain in a different way, so that we all have some sort of something that's around, that kind of helps us calm down from this state of angst that we have. But I think with time, it's not to judge what people are using in any level, but rather that to understand that these things are kind of giving us a hold as the train is moving. But it's when we stand strong in our groundedness that you need less stuff to move you along, where you fully are sourcing from within and not from without.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect ending to say, had I tried to stop pot, to stop my bulimia, to stop my TV watching, I could have gone into a big healing crisis. That's one of the things I imagine you and I do, is we really respect the person's homeostatic level and the deeper need that they're filling with whatever substance or action they're doing. And that when we think as healers that it is our job to move people somewhere faster than they're ready for, we become really irresponsible. And just really, it's like it's such a fine line between trusting where we're at. So for those of people listening, like trust where you're at, while also seeing how much you can move the needle a little bit beyond that comfort zone, a little bit beyond that homeostatic level, and checking it out, but not being extreme or aggressive or rejecting about the way you're making those changes, but coming from strength and kindness, right? And compassion.
Right, but I agree with you. One must go through some discomfort to transform. You have to be uncomfortable because you're entering territory that you don't have footing on. So being grounded as in the transition does help, but we have to be uncomfortable. It is part of the process of growth. It's not cushy.
No, that's why I call it the zone of turbulence, right? You were talking about that before. Every time we grow, we have to move through zones of what I call a zone of turbulence, where issues come up, feelings come up, just, actions come up that we have to move through in order to get to the next level. So I would love to know, I know you are shifting your practice and the way you want to impact people. Will you share a little bit about that?
Yes. I have served for the last 26, 27 years in a private practice, seeing one-on-one patients for many years. But after the pandemic, I recognized that that wasn't enough. And I would like to create learning communities where there's shared cooperation and growth, because we all share multiple intelligences, and there are concepts that we can each explore to be healthier, to be more mindful, to be more loving, to be more real, and to show up in ways that truly represents the essence of who we are at multiple levels. So I'm trying to create those communities. My first workshops will be on health in relationship to a healthy weight, because this is something that I personally did myself and have helped many patients. And there's many things, many courses you can take out there, or many supplements you can take, but I'm taking this through a different approach. It's a true mind, body, spirit approach of knowing the facts, knowing yourself, figuring out where you're going, who's holding you back, and creating a new world for yourself where you make that choice sourcing from within to be healthier outside.
Oh, so Jasmine will be putting the link in the Facebook, and then in the Facebook group, and then we will also be sharing this Zoom call to other communities. And so we will make sure to share it in our email list and this and that. But it's really worth, I mean, I can imagine for those people who've been listening to you this whole hour, it's really worth checking it out. And you and I are exploring ways we can collaborate with each other as well, because we're like Venn diagrams, you and I. We have so much that we connect to and have same thoughts and feelings and knowledge about, and then we each have pieces that the other says, I want more of that, and I want more of that, and that I think that both of our communities could benefit. So I want to thank you. I feel, again, it's what I was saying before, is that I just feel like at a 9 or a 10 on my feel good scale. Having spent this time with you, I feel calm, I feel grounded, I feel inspired, I feel connected. And I want to thank you, not just for the knowledge that you have shared with us, but the state of being that you have invited us to step into by the sheer power of your presence.
Well, I want to thank you as my sister in the healer's journey. So glad to be with you. So glad to be in your community. And I so much look forward to our future work together.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Namaste. And talk to you soon. Let me see if I can stop our
Be well.
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.